Welcome to Athletes to Entrepreneurs, the Alumni Journey. I'm Rob Finkelstein, founder and CEO of Alumni Direct, where we've created a platform to help alumni and athletes network and connect with each other, tap into various resources in finance, in career, in health. But more importantly, this podcast is all about athletes transitioning out of sport. It's such a major issue today. And we talk to former college and professional athletes, and we talk about their transition out of sports, ultimately into successful business leadership and entrepreneurship. And the whole idea is to teach and inspire athletes that there is life after sports. So excited today to have Jed Collins. How you doing, Jed?
Rob, I'm living that entrepreneurial roller coaster. So as of this moment, I guess we're ascending, but I know once you get to the top, what comes next. So just enjoying the moment.
Going down, but going up quickly, hopefully.
I don't, it's a lot of people get scared of the climb. I get scared of both ways. So it's a crazy ride.
Absolutely. Jed was he was grew up playing sports, playing football. He played college football at Washington State. Ultimately, he went into the NFL. He played for the Saints and the Lions, a couple other teams. Very resilient in his career, and we'll talk about some of that. Just really pushing through. And then when he got out, he became a certified financial planner and got into wealth management and just really working with families and teaching people how to do things, which ultimately transcended into his business where he's the CEO and founder of Money Vehicle. So, Jed, let's talk about playing sports growing up. How did that shape you leading up into college?
Tremendously. So as you just mentioned, I'm a football guy, focused in football, but my family was actually basketball. My dad played collegiate basketball. Both my older brothers played collegiate basketball. So that was the family sport. And the best thing that sports taught me was how to fail, how to lose. Today, I introduce and consider myself a great failure. And it really started in the backyard with my brothers. My dad invented a game called King for a Day, where the three brothers would play one-on-one basketball. And the victor was declared king, and he got to boss the other brothers around. As the little brother and as two older brothers who were pretty good at the sport, I remember very vividly the 2 days I walked off the court as king. And that in and of itself taught me a lesson that if tomorrow you're not going to be king, be a gracious king today and make sure you know that person, it may end up being your king, in the future. But it also taught me a different measurement. It taught me to look at a game, a sport, life, a day, and really question and challenge what was I looking at as success. Not always can I look at the scoreboard and decide an external factor as my success story. Walking off those courts, I realized every day I got better. And if I was getting better, wasn't that really the purpose and the point? Growing up, sports becomes such a definition of who you are. It was that resilience that kind of founded into me at a young age that allowed me to go and achieve success in the sporting element. And really to look at it and define myself today as a great failure. At moments I got to define myself as a champion, as a winner. But I look at athletics and I look at the endless translations and principles that we get to go into the real world with because we were able to play that game we loved growing up. And again, looking at kind of what I do now, which is talk to a whole lot of different audiences and rooms. In football, if you can talk to the running backs, the wide receivers, the DBs, and the equipment staff, it allows you to just develop that communication skill that really sustains you.
Yeah, that's great. And I'm sure, having the two older brothers knocking you around would definitely help. So was there, right off the bat, was there the dream to be an NFL player, or do you have like any other sports that you wanted to be a professional in as a
I
kid?
mean, yeah, growing up, we were basketball. We
Okay.
went to the Wooden Classics. We watched UCLA basketball growing up. Obviously, professional being in Southern California, everyone's a Lakers fan. Being in half the NBA Finals will do that. So yeah, my dream was to be an NBA player, and I will say I was a pretty good basketball player. I was all state in California, and that's a pretty big state.
Oh,
So
yeah, for sure.
my problem was I was supposed to be 6'7". I ended up being about 6'1". And if you've ever walked on a basketball court in the last 20 years, 6'1" ain't going to cut it unless you got a really deep three-pointer. And so, yeah, it was that idea of, kind of something that's a stigma of mine throughout my career. I was too short to play basketball. It just wasn't going to be my collegiate sport. I could have gone and played at a small D2 school and been competitive, Yeah, 6'1" power forwards were not the thing I thought they were going to be. And even in the football element, I walk in and I say, "Oh, I'm this position. I'm a linebacker." "Oh, well, you're too short, too slow for linebacker." "All right, well, I'll be a tight end." "You're too short for tight end." What else is there left? And that's kind of how I ended up becoming a fullback. But it was that adaptability truly that sports taught me. I am not super athletic, but I am an athlete. My 40 time's not going to impress you, and my vertical's not going to impress you. Put me on a field, let me play the game, and I will impress you. I'll figure it out, and I will survive a lot more than many. But yeah, it was really that idea of basketball was my dream and my love. And as we all do, you get woken up to the reality of that's not your future.
Yeah, it's just funny. I like that question because I usually ask the question, then I turn it with me. It's like I love baseball. I want to be a major league baseball player. Unfortunately, talent wasn't there, so now I do podcasts and be an entrepreneur. So
Now I talk baseball.
yeah, I talk
That's
baseball.
still a talent.
Hey, absolutely. I told my son I wanted to be in the, if I would have stuck with him, maybe I could have been in the booth with like Joe Buck and stuff like that. But yeah,
Man, has he got a career.
he does for sure. So let's talk about education on athletes transition to sports. So when you were at Washington State, was there any education, and not just the basic 1 day workshop, but was there education kind of leading up to like what's going to happen when you're done?
I mean, I had a great experience and a pretty good degree from Washington State that I love and appreciate every day. But honestly, part of the mission and the journey I'm on the personal finance, financial education side is because the answer was simple. No, there was not a life preparation, especially when it came to the world of finance. I was in the small group that had a dream or an opportunity to go continue to play. I was not very, I went undrafted. I was not a top tier guy. Again, five flat 40 is not getting many scouts' attention. But that transition process, so I looked at it up until my senior year. I was an accounting major. And I say up until I graduated as an accounting major, a business degree. I was studying to go become an accountant because I went to college as a student athlete. I was very passionate and focused on the idea that sports had taken me this far, but I knew it wasn't going to take me much further. So that transition started for me out of necessity. And then a glimmer of hope, not the front door, but that sliding door on the side of the house opened up, and I got to sneak in through that side and continue to live in the dream. But I am fortunate because of how many times I got cut, the reality checks throughout college, and just the overall message for me as an athlete. This is not your future. This is not your everything. My parents growing up were very fundamental in the student first, athlete second. And so I always had one eye on what was this platform going to do for me? How was I going to use the things the game of football or just sports in general provided me to launch into my next thing? I chased the NFL journey with a carry-on suitcase. It ended up being 7 years. So that went a lot longer than anyone, including myself, expected. But even throughout that passion and throughout that dream, I was still looking forward to where my life was going to head next. So I look at what you are doing. I look at the thousands of athletes that are losing their identity and transitioning and knowing that no, they don't have a comfy, cushiony place to land. Some of that is self inflicted, some of that is just the nature of the world. At 11 now, you are deemed an NIL professional athlete,
Yeah, it's
told
crazy.
that this is ball, man. This is your ticket. Do this and nothing else. Don't even play other sports. Focus solely on this thing. And when that time comes at 18, 22, 28, or 38, you really look at it and say, well, what else can I do? And it is a challenge. I get to work with a lot of athletes around looking at what their career was and finding the transitional kind of attributes that their personalized, customized experience give them in this thing we call the real world.
Yeah, and it's interesting. I guess go a step further is what kinds of is the NFL doing things for the athletes again? I mean, a lot of things, whether it's college or NFL. I mean, everybody's kind of focusing on what's going on now. But are there programs in place to help the football players transition once they're done?
So I'm very proud to say through the NFL Players Association, I am part of that solution. I work with about half the NFL teams, deliver to over 1,000 NFL players each year. I teach the language of money. So I get the players to see how to speak and act wealthy. Big misconsideration around what rich is versus what wealth is. But as I look at kind of the impact I am getting to make and the guys I get to talk to, and as they walk in and as they walk through this crazy dream, the modern day athlete has matured and really developed over the last decade or two. Everybody needs to do more. That is not a question. Doesn't matter what sport. And really, I look downstream now at colleges and say, you are dealing with professional athletes. In 30 plus states, high schools are dealing with professional athletes. So preparing them for not just the media training, 10, 20 years ago, everybody jumped on, hey, you got to be able to get in front of a microphone, not embarrass yourself, but more importantly, don't embarrass the team. That training is there. But now it's, well, I have an LLC. You are not a businessman. Jay-Z said you are a business, man. And so looking at your identity as, well, now I need to figure out what this LLC is. Do I need an S Corp? How am I going to do expenses, deductions, file taxes, protect myself, liability, credit, debt, all those questions, considering you are a walking billboard of what you represent. So the training, obviously I focus and am an expert in the financial education side, but the training today, as you both need to be a master on the court and you have to be, I guess, dangerous enough to to be a master off the court, or have a team you trust, which is a whole nother set of red flags and sharks circling around that you have to be educated to be able to identify.
Yeah, and obviously there's people that want to help and there's people that want to take advantage of, and I guess it all comes back to education. And to like what you're saying, when you're even now at a younger age, even the high school age, especially when you talk about, I talk about this all the time about just, hey, you got to start an LLC, you got to pay taxes, like all these things that these kids aren't realizing, their families don't know either. So let's talk a little bit about networking, connecting, especially the importance of it while you're still playing.
Everything. And I was told to me by a 17-year long snapper, Jed, professional athlete sounds a lot better than former professional athlete. And that stuck with me. Go to every event you can, every school, every community, every networking event. Go out and begin that resume, meet people when you are that star in the sky. I look at, what we work through is called the A team: your agent, your advisor, your accountant, your attorney, and your advocate. Those are all people you're going to meet primarily through your network, whether that's your agent connecting you or somebody else. You have to get out and start to meet human beings to be able to vet out and to question and to wonder and to see. I didn't know what Rob's does as a job was even a career path. Man, I want to learn from that guy and see what that avenue looks like. I am tremendously proud of the network I've been able to develop, and it's because I'm a hustler. COVID comes and everybody goes, oh, we're not going to meet people. You and we just went virtual. I went and started to look at different ways to connect. And that word mentor always looks up. And I think too many people get lost in, I need to go find somebody 20 years ahead of me doing something. And it says, no, there's a plus, a minus, and an equal. I have mentors now that are 25 teaching me AI, teaching me social, teaching me the terms and the words these students are using. I have mentors who are my age and in my position. And obviously I have mentors that are chasing me, or I'm chasing. But something I tell a lot of students, especially a lot of young athletes, is the circle around you is so close to who you are. And that's very, very important. But the circle you really need to create is so close to the goals and the dreams and the things you want to be. And that is not the buddies and the people in your apartment. Who are those people? That's your network. That's who you got to go out, find, meet. Find the people who are closer to who you want to become, not close to who you are.
Yeah, for sure. I think a lot of people too would give advice of just even when you're, in high school. You've got your friends, you got their families. You never know who people are. And I think if you foster that paying it forward mentality, if we want to help others, that people will gravitate to. I tell the story a lot lately on the podcast, a fairly recent one, but this one guy, his son was a lacrosse player, And this guy's CEO of a company. He just told his son's friends, hey, if you need an internship, it's just, you got to be aware of your surroundings, and kind of taking it a step further too, from a networking perspective. Do you find, in being in the NFL, and it seems like it's very siloed between like NFL, Major League Baseball, NBA, and that the athletes in those sports tend to stick within that sport. Do you see that changing at all, or what's your thoughts on that?
I think the new unifying connection is this idea of being an investor. Every athlete today used to want to be an entertainer. I play basketball, but I also want to sing, or I also want to do other things. Now everybody wants to be a business and be an investor. So you can go to an event and find a baseball player, basketball player, and football player sitting at a table, not talking about their sport or their training. They're talking about what they're doing off the field. So I do see this new unifier where, again, 10 years ago, 20 years ago, athletes were shunned to go do stuff off the field. You want to do a podcast? You want to start a business? No. Focus on your sport, focus on your job. I love this nature. Obviously, the money is very different. Baseball is guaranteed, basketball is really big. In football, there's a lot more guys, and the money is growing, but it doesn't even scratch the surface of those other two sports. Let's be real. And so the conversations shift and change. But I will go and talk to probably 100 rookies in the NFL over the next 2 months. The amount of questions I get around LLC, around trusts, around umbrella insurance policies, the education is there, the curiosity is there. They're getting tidbits from TikTok and social media. Yes, I'm going to be asked how I use a life insurance policy to be my own bank, because in 60 seconds that looks amazing, and then in 60 years it doesn't look as reality check. But the connection from the modern day athlete, you are in the public eye, you are a business, you have already made money even before you enter the professional realms, many of which will already be millionaires. The question is changing from how do I get rich to how do I stay wealthy? And that shift comes from speaking money, which is, what I love to people to do, but it's also a mindset shift. My message and my program, if you were to put it in a short term, is decades, not days. If I can get an athlete to start looking at this dream in the form of decades and not some amazing days in their 20s, we have taken a massive first step. That was not the message. That was not the mindset 10, 20 years ago. It was, I'm a millionaire. Look at how I live. Now it is, I'm fortunate for this responsibility. Watch me turn this into a lifetime and a lifestyle. That decades, not days. I believe any athlete, and we're talking MLB and NFL, women's sports are the biggest up and coming movement.
Yeah.
And I get to work a lot with the National Women's Soccer League. This is the beginning of their explosion into the new wave of wealth. So that unifying factor of I want to know more, I want to understand, and I want to make this dream last a lifetime, that is going to transcend any sport.
Yeah, and and I think too, I always talk about like the athlete DNA, the skill set. I mean, regardless of the sport, like you've got that commonality. I mean, a lot of people, you started playing sports when you're young, you played all the way through, and even the athletes that aren't fortunate to make it to professional, these college athletes, is just that they need to, I think expanding out to other people, and again, that athlete, like I talk about for my podcast guests, which you're included on this and the future one, but we do like a monthly networking event. It's just really cool to see. I've had like NFL players and NBA and snowboarders and wrestlers and soccer players, but to see everybody just kind of roll up the sleeves and say, how can we help each other with our businesses? It's just kind of cool to see. It's the whole athlete mentality. So let's talk about alumni engagement. And obviously, an alumni direct is something that's really important to us. But when you were at Washington State, was there a movement to bring athletes back to mentor, and not just coming back for like the homecoming game, but like in golf tournaments, but more to like work together, with the teams?
There wasn't. Part of which I have tried to remedy. I've obviously got to go back and speak quite a bit, but also connecting in other athletes who want to come. Hey, I'm a real estate expert, or I started this drop shipping company, or I have a brand. Come and talk, meet you. yearned, I asked, I wanted to meet Jed Collins 10 years older, 5 years older, the guy who was sitting in this chair who transitioned into something successful. We need to see the template. You need to see how it all works. And the alumni connection is, I think, if not more, a third of college value today. You look at these prestigious universities and they're trying to establish continuously how much their cost equals their value. And a large part of it comes from that alumni, part of that community. And to be able to see it come back and say, yes, I could not have done what I've done without this place, it just speaks, it speaks miles. So I've actually got to coordinate 2 different alumni groups, if you will, for Washington State University. The first is just a football alumni. Let's come back. Let's go to a golf outing and just walk back into the locker room. But that in itself has turned into the young guys talk to the old guys about jobs. And it's awesome, whether that's come work in an office or come be a fireman. It's that idea of connection and of that network. And the other one was I was one of the founders of our Cougar Collective, our NIL branch and arm, which at a university like Washington State, it is only alumni. It's the passionate. It's the ones who have been there and want to see it succeed. We're not big mega donors. There's not a whole lot of ROI, but it's that unifying thing of we all want to see this spect of our university succeed. This is the new avenue. We got to come together as a group and try to compete in it. And that was a wild 2-3 years of getting that thing off the ground. And nobody could have seen what NIL has become. But I think colleges today need to continue, especially in the athletic world, connect that alumni back in and give the player of today the template. Look at this guy. He's just as ugly as you. He's just as this as you. But he has moved on into the real world because of the foundation that he or she had to jump off out of here.
Yeah, it's so true seeing that. I mean, a lot of these schools that we're talking to, and talk a little bit offline, but they want to reengage their alumni athletes. And I mean, we've talked about doing like you were talking about before, like a networking event, like a monthly networking event where you might highlight one athlete and kind of just, spend 5-10 minutes, from their journey from their school to what they're doing today, and then open it up to their fellow alumni and students, talking to them, just kind of doing something like that each month. I think it's so important. Here's I don't know if you got a chance to watch or listen to any of these podcasts, but the question I always like to ask, the 2 questions. One is, in 10 words or less, what advice would you give to Jed Collins as a freshman? So now you're going back and giving advice to you as a freshman in college.
The missteps and the fails are better lessons in the big picture, and your goal is a marathon, not a sprint.
There you go. It was well thought out. You could tell he's like, okay, how many words is that? Is it 10? Is it 12?
Might have been 12. All
right, and then fast forward. What advice would you give to senior Jed?
Don't feel embarrassed or like a disappointment for chasing your dreams. As an entrepreneur, I've really come to this reality of we live so much in this glass eye. We look at social media and everybody looks at exactly what I'm doing. And if I fail, which 99% of entrepreneurs are going to fail, if I fail, I've messed up or I should be embarrassed or whatnot. And the truth is, every person I meet who has succeeded and is older tells me they wish they would have. Tells me that, okay, so I was a 40-year attorney, or I sold insurance for 40 years and I made a lot of money. I wish I would have. The dream you have is not going to be measured on the result it ultimately comes to. The dream is going to be measured on if you gave it your effort and you tried, and you can leave that battlefield, that game, knowing I did everything. Sometimes we run into a bigger, better team. That's just the truth. And in business, damn it if they're not big and bad. But looking at my older self, I really want to say, I could have been an advisor for 30 years, and heck, I might need to go back and become an advisor one day. But my mission, my passion, my dream was to empower 1 million young people how to speak money. There's not a lot of money in that. It's a harder path. It's a newer market and a newer audience. But I want to be proud of me for trying to tilt the world and change the futures of so many. even if I fail. And I'm struggling with that and dealing with that. As you can probably tell, this feels a little bit of kind of a confession. But as any entrepreneur, you want to look at your older self and just go, don't be embarrassed for putting your heart on your sleeve and running as fast as you can.
Yeah, no, I like that. That's great advice. So let's talk a little bit about your transition out of sports. So, I mean, ultimately, obviously, you got done with college, and you talk a little bit offline about your journey. Talk about your journey, and then maybe give some words of advice to athletes that are transitioning out.
I failed with my first paychecks in the NFL. And so it set me off on a personal path that 7 years later, I became a certified financial planner. And I'm very proud of the journey it takes me to, which is why I love calling myself a great failure. Is an early fail often leads to my success. But as I looked at the transition, I went down the road everybody pointed. You like money, you're from the sports world, go be a wealth management. And I said, all right, cool. That's the road in front of me. Even though I had a road, I had a passion, I even had an expertise, that transition is a tsunami that nobody can prepare you for. The loss of identity, and it sounds, conceited or narcissistic. The fact that nobody's clapped for me in over a decade, that eats at
Everybody,
you.
come on, let's go.
Yeah,
He's
thank
doing a
you.
great job.
But you look at it and you go, that sound of approval from your coach, from your teammate, from the fans, from everything, knowing I did right, I did good, that's gone. And so you get lost in the direction a lot because those kind of accountabilities and reminders aren't there to pave your path. And so I went into wealth management, loved it, learned a ton, but continued to come back to this reality, helping a family go from 2 million to 4 million or 10 to 20 wasn't my passion. I wanted to go help more people start this journey, kind of like I did 17 years ago. And so my transition went into wealth management, but it really started to formalize around financial education. And at the RIA Brighton Jones I was at, I started founding the financial education part. I would go to 401k clients. I would go to high schools, community colleges, and do workshops, to the point where I wrote my book, and I was kind of looking at this and saying, I wonder if I could go do this for a whole job and a real career and focus on it fully. COVID had other plans, so that kind of threw some spins in my world, but that's entrepreneur, pivot, adapt, keep going, get to the next landmark. And as I transitioned, I really started to find my new passion. My new team was forming around this new era and this new concept. And 10 years later, a lot of people tell me I'm in the right place at the right time. That's not by coincidence. That's not by happen chance. And very soon, I believe I'm going to be an overnight success that took a decade to build.
Yeah, no, and so maybe a couple quick words like for advice to athletes is, like you said, there's so many things that go with loss of identity, like mental health challenges. Again, obviously the financial literacy, which you're addressing. Short words of advice to athletes once they're done with their sport, whether it be out of college or professionally.
Don't be afraid to fail. See it as your first attempt in learning. The fear of failure is much more disabling than the act of failing. Build that network. I would go and highly, highly recommend it. Finding jobs and careers you're interested in and reaching out and seeing who and how you can talk to them. But then really just find confidence and comfort in the idea that you're not going to replace what you had. I think that's a big pill, and it's something we need to swallow. Is you're not trying to replace the game, the sport, the thrill. You're trying to find a new. And I think too many people are trying to replace the adoration or whatever they got from their sport. As an athlete, just look at, I want to create a new version of me. This is the avenue I'm choosing today. It might be the mistake, and I might need to choose another road down the road, but take that step. Don't sit on the couch. Take the step, whatever direction it's in. Just take one step. Tomorrow, come back, do the same.
That's great advice. I love that. I mean, basically, it's I say you're starting a new game, right? And there's a
New
new
game.
team, but you continue to build on that. So you went into financial planning after the NFL, and then ultimately today we've been talking about entrepreneurship, and so a CEO and founder of Money Vehicle. Talk a little bit about some of the great things you're doing, your whole model. That's his buddy in the background there. I have one too, but mine's settled down right now, so hopefully he'll stay quiet too.
So today, Money Vehicle, we are a financial education company. Each year, we serve about 20,000 high school students, 5,000 college athletes, and 1,000 professional athletes, and we get them to speak money. We are not an advisor. We're not a brokerage. We don't have accounts. I'm not a financial institution. We truly just look for unbiased education. That roadmap and that plan I wish I had when I got my first paycheck, I've spent a decade building. And so what I love is today, high schools nationwide, states are mandating, finally, we all need to go through a financial literacy class. I have literally spent 17 years building that class. Today we have it. It is able to be plugged into biggest school districts in Louisiana, Jefferson Parish. I just was visiting them last week. They're utilizing it with thousands of students, all the way down to small, middle and nowhere post school district that is, a senior class of 10. And so I look at the ability to go nationwide and spread this message, do it in an entertaining and thoughtful way, but to really engage the student in the conversation and in their kind of activities of building a financial plan. That's our goal, that's our mission. And if we were looking for a singular mission statement, our goal is to open 1 million Roth IRA accounts nationwide. And we're not there yet, but every day we get closer and closer.
That's great. That's good deal. And so how do people find you?
Yourmoneyvehicle.com is going to be our website. Obviously, LinkedIn, our social medias, Jed Collins, or the fullback of finance. But yeah, right now we are working with schools, school districts, school programs, colleges, athletic departments, Greek or organizations. A lot of nonprofit groups are utilizing as the foundation. Hey, we want a template of the conversation we want to go facilitate and host. So yeah, reach out, yourmoneyvehicle.com, or just shoot us an email at info@yourmoneyvehicle.com. We are just super proud of kind of the way people are taking what we have built and customizing it to what they would like to use it for.
Yeah, it's so important. I mean, it's great what you're doing, just the whole education aspect. Because I think everybody, like you talked about, everybody gets hung up on the money and, oh, I'm going to make all this money and become wealthy and all that. But it's needing to understand what to do with it. So definitely, we encourage reach out to Jed. I know Jed and I are going to have a bunch of conversations offline too to see what we can do to help continue to move his education along. And you can find us alumnidirect.com. The podcast is on our YouTube channel as well as across all the different podcast networks. And this is such an important topic. I mean, so many people, athletes, struggle with the transition out of sport, whether it be again high school, college, professionally, the ones that are fortunate to play like Jed. And that's what this show is all about. We really want to just make a difference. I always say, at least help one athlete, but I mean, obviously, want to help a lot more. I mean, there's a lot of, unfortunately, there's a lot of sad stories out there on the news. You hear about these athletes, and our thoughts go out to them, and we want to make a difference in bringing all different types of businesses that can help them. So, Jed, thanks again so much. It was great having you.
Rob, you are saving one athlete at a time. I look at the mental health of our community across all sports. This is a program, this is a connection, this is a network that we need. We get so lost and so beaten up on the thing I was great at is over. And I hope groups like this get to look at people and say, the thing you were great at is just starting, and transition all of those old attributes into this new world. You'll be just fine. So appreciate the opportunity to share my message. And truly, I think our worlds are going to continue to connect and combine.
Absolutely. Well, it's been a true pleasure.
Thank you.